The key didn't turn. I tried again, harder. The same metallic click. Then I saw it. A brand new lock glinting under the porch light. Through the window, I caught sight of my own mother, laughing with my brother, plates of food on the table, as if I'd never lived there. When I knocked, she turned, froze, then said words that cut deeper than any knife. "You don't live here anymore, Matsi. Go back to wherever you came from." Matsi was the kind of son every parent wished for. He didn't talk much, but his actions spoke louder than any words. When his father passed away, the whole family fell apart, but Matsi stayed strong for everyone. He was the one who handled the bills, sent money home every month, and made sure his mother, Zuba, never lacked anything. Even when things got tough for him in the city, he never complained. He worked long hours, skipped his own needs, and sent what he could to help his mother keep the house running. When Zuba struggled with the last part of the mortgage, it was Matsi who stepped in. He cleared the remaining debt quietly, telling his mother it was just his way of saying thank you for everything she had done. She smiled, hugged him, and told him she was proud. That moment meant everything to him. He believed that paying off the house was not just about money. It was about love, family, and trust. He never asked for his name on any paper, never demanded anything in return. To him, family didn't need proof or signatures. What mattered most was that his mother was safe, the home was secure, and his late father's dream stayed alive. Even when his siblings forgot birthdays or stopped calling, Matsi kept showing up. He visited every few weeks, bringing groceries, fixing broken pipes, and checking that his mother was comfortable. He thought his quiet care was enough to hold their bond together. But deep down, Zuba had started seeing him differently. Maybe she thought he was too soft, too simple, someone she could always depend on yet easily push aside. Matsi didn't notice the small changes at first. The shorter phone calls, the cold tone in her voice, the way she talked more about his younger brother, Kenzo. He just smiled and thought maybe she was tired or getting older. But behind that gentle smile, a storm was slowly building, one that would shake everything he believed about love and family. He had given his heart, his money, and his time to keep that home standing. He had done everything a son could do. But one day, all that loyalty would mean nothing. The house he helped save would turn into a battlefield, and the woman he trusted most would be the one to lock him out. When Matsi lost his job in the city, he packed his few bags and went back home, thinking it would just be for a short while. He told himself it was only until he found another job. The house still felt like home to him. The smell of his mother's cooking, the sound of the old clock ticking in the living room, and the photos of his late father still hanging on the wall. He felt peace there, and he wanted to make it even better for his mother. He noticed the roof leaked whenever it rained, so he climbed up himself and fixed it. The walls were stained and peeling, so he bought paint from his savings and gave every room a fresh new look. The wiring in the house was old and dangerous, so he replaced it all carefully, staying up late at night to make sure everything worked perfectly. He didn't wait for anyone to thank him. He just did what needed to be done because that's who he was, the son who cared too much. Zuba seemed happy at first. She told everyone how hardworking Matsi was, how lucky she was to have a son like him. But that changed the moment Kenzo arrived. Kenzo, the youngest, came home with a shiny car, loud music, and expensive clothes. He brought gifts for Zuba and called her Queen Mother, with a smile that made her heart melt. He was charming, talkative, and full of stories about life in the city. He made her laugh again, and slowly, Matsi noticed her attitude toward him start to fade. When they sat at the dinner table, Zuba listened to Kenzo more. She praised his plans, his style, even his jokes, while Matsi sat quietly just listening. If Matsi tried to speak, she would interrupt him with, "You wouldn't understand, Matsi. Kenzo knows how things work." Days later, she began hinting that Matsi was staying too long. She complained that he was always around, that he didn't have a job, and that people might start talking. Matsi was shocked. "Mama, I'm just trying to help," he said softly. But she only sighed and said, "You've done enough. You should go out there and find your own life." He went to his room that night, heart heavy. The same walls he had painted with love now felt cold. The roof he had fixed no longer felt like it sheltered him. Everything he had done from the goodness of his heart was forgotten, replaced by the sweet lies and flashy smiles of a brother who only showed up when there was something to gain. One quiet Sunday afternoon, Matsi woke up to the smell of stew cooking in the kitchen. He thought it would be a normal day like every other. But when he walked into the living room, he saw something unusual. His mother, Zuba, was sitting straight on the couch, her arms folded tightly, her face serious. Kenzo sat beside her, pretending to scroll on his phone, but there was a strange smile on his face. Matsi felt uneasy, but sat down anyway. Zuba cleared her throat and said she wanted to have a family meeting. Matsi nodded, waiting to hear what it was about. She looked straight at him and said in a firm voice, "You've been here for months now, Matsi. You need to start paying rent, or leave." For a moment, he thought he had heard her wrong. Rent? In his own father's house? He stared at her, confused. "Mama, what do you mean? This is my home too. I helped pay for it." The room went silent. Zuba looked away for a second, then said coldly, "Help is not ownership. You helped me because you're my son. That doesn't mean this house belongs to you." Matsi felt his chest tighten. He looked at her, searching for any sign of kindness, but there was none. Kenzo leaned back with a smirk, clearly enjoying the moment. Matsi tried to stay calm. "Mama, I only came home because I lost my job. I've been fixing everything here, paying bills, taking care of things. I never meant to stay forever." Zuba sighed and shook her head. "People in this community are talking," she said. "They say you're a grown man living in your mother's house. It's embarrassing." Those words stung more than anything. He had done everything to protect her from shame, and now she was ashamed of him. He wanted to remind her how he cleared the mortgage, repaired the roof, and repainted the house, but he stopped himself. He knew it would make no difference. Her mind was already made up. After a long silence, Matsi stood up quietly and said, "If that's how you feel, Mama, I'll start looking for another place." His voice trembled, but he didn't want to cry in front of her. Zuba just nodded, avoiding his eyes. That night, as Matsi packed a few of his things, Kenzo walked past his room and leaned against the door. With a grin he whispered, "You'll regret staying here." Then he walked away, leaving Matsi staring at the half-filled bag on his bed. The house he once called home suddenly felt like a stranger's place. And for the first time, Matsi realized his own mother had chosen sides. And it wasn't his. It was late at night when Matsi walked home from his new job at a small warehouse. The shift had been long, but he didn't mind. He was saving every penny to move out soon, just to keep peace with his mother. As he reached the gate, he noticed something strange. The light outside the door was still on, but the lock looked different. He tried turning his key once, then again harder, but it didn't fit anymore. Confused, he stepped back, his hands trembling slightly. He knocked softly, thinking maybe his mother had changed the locks for safety and forgotten to tell him. No one answered. The house was quiet, except for faint laughter coming from inside. He looked through the side window, and there she was, his mother, sitting at the table with Kenzo, eating dinner, smiling as if nothing was wrong. For a moment he just stood there, frozen in disbelief. Then his eyes fell on something lying under the mat. It was an envelope with his name on it. He picked it up and opened it slowly. Inside was a single piece of paper with words that cut straight into his heart. "You are no longer welcome in this house. Any attempt to enter will be treated as trespassing." And below that, his mother's signature. Matsi felt his knees weaken. The same hands that once held him as a child had written those words. He knocked again, softly at first, then louder, calling her name. The laughter inside stopped for a second, but no one came to the door. He stood there, drenched in the night air, his heart breaking quietly. He tried calling her phone, but she didn't answer. Then he called his uncle, hoping someone could talk sense into her. His uncle sighed deeply and said, "It's best you let it go, son. Family fights always end ugly. Don't make it worse." Matsi couldn't believe it. Everyone was turning away as if he was the problem. He sat on the small bench by the gate for a long time, staring at the letter in his hand. The house lights went off one by one until the whole place was dark. But Matsi didn't cry. He just folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his pocket. In that moment, something inside him changed. He realized this wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about the truth. They thought they could shut him out and break him, but they had no idea what he was capable of when pushed too far. This wasn't going to end ugly, he thought quietly. It was going to end right. The next morning, Matsi woke up in the small room he had rented near his workplace. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the letter again. Every word from it replayed in his mind, but instead of crying, he felt calm. He decided he needed to understand everything, not just emotionally, but legally. If his mother truly believed the house wasn't his, he wanted to know the truth written on paper. He took a day off work and went to the local property office. The building was old, filled with shelves of dusty files and humming computers. When it was his turn, he handed the officer his ID and the house address. The man typed for a while, then printed out the record. "Here's the title holder," he said, handing Matsi the document. Matsi looked down at it, expecting to see his name next to his mother's. But it wasn't there. The only name listed was Zuba Okuri, his mother. At first he thought it was a mistake. He leaned closer and asked, "Are you sure? I've been paying for this house for years." The officer shrugged. "Payments don't always mean ownership. Only the title does." Matsi walked out slowly, his hands shaking slightly. He sat on a bench outside and opened his folder. He started checking through his old messages, receipts, and transaction records. Line after line, he saw proof. Transfers for mortgage payments, electricity bills, water taxes, all sent directly to the same address. He realized he had been paying for everything, while the documents remained in her name. Every bill he cleared had made her credit stronger and his weaker. He took a deep breath. It was painful, but he refused to lose control. Instead of anger, a new kind of determination filled him. He started making copies of everything: receipts, emails, text messages, even photos of the repairs he had done. He contacted the contractors who worked on the roof and wiring, asking them to confirm his payments. Every small piece of evidence mattered. After a few days, he walked into a quiet law office at the end of the street. There he met a calm, intelligent lawyer named Abani. She listened carefully as Matsi explained everything: the payments, the letter, the lock on the door. When he finished, she looked at him and said softly, "You've done more than most would, and you have every right to fight this." For the first time in weeks, Matsi felt seen. He left the office that day not with anger, but with purpose. He had spent years building that home, and now he was going to build his case, piece by piece, truth by truth. When Zuba found out that Matsi had gone to a lawyer, her anger exploded. She couldn't believe it. To her, it felt like betrayal. She called him one evening and said in a harsh voice, "Come home. We need to talk." Matsi went, hoping they could speak calmly, maybe even fix things. But the moment he stepped into the yard, he could feel the tension in the air. His mother was waiting at the doorway, her arms crossed, her face tight with fury. Before he could even greet her, she shouted, "So it's true? You went to hire a lawyer? You're suing your own mother?" Her voice echoed through the compound. Neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering. Matsi stood still, his heart heavy but steady. "I'm not suing you, Mama," he said softly. "I'm defending what's mine." His words only made her angrier. "What's yours?" she snapped. "You've been living off me, eating my food, sleeping under my roof, and now you want to steal the same roof from me." Matsi shook his head slowly. "I never wanted to take anything from you. I just want what's fair." Kenzo came out from the house then, holding his phone up, recording everything like it was entertainment. "Look at you, big brother," he said with a mocking smile. "You're making Mama cry, and for what? A house. You think a few receipts will make you the owner." He laughed loudly, walking circles around him. "Good luck proving it." Matsi turned to face him, but didn't reply. He knew arguing would only make things worse. Zuba stepped closer, her eyes full of hurt and anger. "You were always quiet, always pretending to be the good one," she said bitterly. "But deep down, you're just like your father, trying to control everything." That cut deep, but Matsi didn't flinch. He took a slow breath and said, "Mama, I loved this home because it was ours. I worked for it because I believed in us. But you locked me out and treated me like a stranger. I can't let that stand." Zuba looked away, her lips pressed tightly. Kenzo stopped laughing for a moment, realizing Matsi wasn't backing down. The silence stretched long between them. Finally, Matsi said quietly, "I'm not fighting you, Mama. I'm fighting for the years I was made to feel like I didn't belong here." Then he turned and walked away, leaving them standing by the doorway. For the first time, Zuba felt something shift inside her: fear. Because she had seen it in his eyes. He wasn't coming for revenge. He was coming for justice. The day of the hearing came faster than Matsi expected. The courtroom was full. Neighbors, relatives, and curious strangers filled every seat. Everyone wanted to see how a son could take his own mother to court. Matsi sat quietly beside his lawyer, Abani, his hands clasped together. He wasn't there to humiliate anyone. He just wanted justice. Across from him, Zuba walked and dressed neatly in her best clothes, gold earrings shining, her head held high. She clutched her purse like it was her shield, and didn't look at Matsi even once. When the case began, her lawyer stood confidently. He started by telling a story that made the room murmur with sympathy. He described Matsi as an ungrateful and entitled son, who refused to move on in life. He said Matsi had failed in the city, returned home, and now wanted to take the house his mother had built. Zuba nodded as he spoke, wiping her eyes dramatically with a handkerchief. People began to whisper, some shaking their heads at Matsi. Abani waited patiently. When it was her turn, she stood up calmly and spoke in a clear, steady voice. She didn't attack Zuba with harsh words. She simply began to show the truth. Your Honor, she said, we have proof that for years my client Matsi Okuri made every major financial contribution toward that house. She opened a file and handed over copies of bank statements, receipts, and tax records. One by one, the documents showed transfers made directly from Matsi's account, mortgage deposits, renovation payments, and monthly utility bills. The courtroom grew silent. Even Zuba's lawyer leaned forward, his confident smile fading. Abani continued. Every payment was made in good faith, out of love and trust. But what's most important is this. The house was refinanced using Matsi's credit, and his mother co-signed without his full consent. The judge lifted his head quickly. Are you saying the mother used her son's credit without permission? He asked. Yes, Your Honor, Abani replied firmly. The documents show that his financial records were used to secure a refinancing loan, which was later paid off through his direct deposits. Zuba's face turned pale. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The entire courtroom stared at her. The woman who had entered as the victim now looked cornered. Matsi didn't look at her with hate, only sadness. The judge frowned, tapping his pen against the table. This changes everything, he said slowly. The silence that followed felt heavy. Zuba lowered her head, realizing that the story she had built for everyone was now breaking apart in front of them all. Piece by piece, truth by truth, the air in the courtroom was heavy after all the documents were shown. Everyone was waiting for the judge's final question. When he turned to Matsi and asked if he wanted to press for full ownership of the house, the room went completely quiet. Even Zuba stopped fidgeting with her purse. All eyes were on Matsi. He slowly stood up. His voice was calm, not angry, not proud, just honest. He looked straight at his mother and said, I don't want to take back the truth. The whole room went still. For a moment no one moved or spoke. Even the judge paused, as if those words had reached something deeper than the law. Matsi's words weren't just about property. They were about all the years of love, trust, and pain between a mother and her son. Zuba looked at him in disbelief. She wasn't expecting kindness, not after everything. She blinked quickly, trying to hide the tears forming in her eyes. The judge cleared his throat and looked down at the evidence again. Mr. Okuri, he said finally, your honesty is noted. Then, turning his gaze to both sides, he began to read his decision. The court finds that Mr. Matsi Okuri is legally entitled to joint ownership of the said property, he said firmly. Furthermore, Mrs. Zuba Okuri is ordered to reimburse her son for the funds obtained through unauthorized refinancing under his name. There was a collective gasp from the audience. Zuba's mouth fell open. She turned sharply toward Matsi, her face a mix of shock and confusion. You planned this all along? She asked, her voice trembling. She wanted to believe he had tricked her, that this was revenge. But Matsi just looked at her softly and said, No, Mama. You did, when you changed the locks. Those words cut through the room like cold air. The same locks she had changed months ago. The day she shut her own son out of the house he helped build. Everyone remembered that part of the story. That moment had started everything. Zuba lowered her head. For the first time, she looked smaller, not because of age but because she realized what she had done. The people who once whispered against Matsi now looked at him with quiet respect. The judge nodded, signing the final papers. Matsi didn't smile or celebrate. He just sighed, as if a heavy stone had finally been lifted from his chest. He picked up his mother's purse that had fallen to the floor and placed it gently beside her before walking out. The courtroom remained silent. Long after he left, everyone knew they had just witnessed something rare. Not a victory of revenge, but of truth. And in that silence, even Zuba seemed to understand that her son had not taken her home away. He had only taken back his dignity. After the court case, Zuba refused to speak to Matsi. She packed a few of her things and moved in with Kenzo, thinking her younger son would stand by her and make life easier. At first, Kenzo acted sweet and caring. He promised to take care of her, told her she didn't need Matsi or anyone else. But within a few months, things began to fall apart. Zuba noticed her savings disappearing little by little. Whenever she asked, Kenzo would say, "Relax, Mama, I'm handling everything." But he wasn't. He was using her money to fund his own lifestyle. Parties, gambling, and expensive clothes. Soon the debt collectors began calling. The apartment rent was unpaid, and the credit card bills piled up. Zuba tried reaching out to Kenzo for help, but one morning, she woke up and found his room empty. He was gone, no note, no goodbye. Later, she learned he had left the country with a woman he met online. The same son she had trusted blindly had left her with nothing but unpaid bills and shame. For the first time, she felt what it was like to be locked out, not of a house, but of her own peace. The silence of the apartment became too heavy, and she realized how far she had fallen from the warmth she once had. Meanwhile, Matsi didn't celebrate or brag about his win in court. He never told anyone what his brother did or how his mother had ended up. Instead, he focused on rebuilding. He started repairing the old house, fixing the cracks, painting the walls, planting new flowers in the garden. But this time, he didn't do it just for himself. He had a different dream now. Matsi decided to open the home to children who had no families, kids who had been left behind by life, just like he had been. He registered it as a small foster home and called it the Open Door House. Every room was filled with warmth and laughter. The kitchen always smelled of food. The walls were painted in bright colors, and no door in the house was ever locked. Neighbors who once judged him now came to help. They donated clothes, books, and furniture. The same house that once held bitterness now held hope. Matsi often sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the children play in the yard, their laughter echoing through the air. Sometimes he would think of his mother and quietly whisper to himself, "A house isn't made of bricks. It's made of the people who never lock you out." And in that moment, he knew he had finally turned his pain into something beautiful. A home that would always stay open for those who needed love the most. Months later, on a quiet evening, there was a soft knock at the door of the Open Door House. When Matsi opened it, he froze for a moment. Standing there was his mother, Zuba, thinner, weaker, and trembling slightly. Her eyes were red, her hands clutching a small bag. She looked nothing like the proud woman who once told him to leave. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind carried faint laughter from the children playing outside, their joy filling the silence. Zuba lowered her gaze and whispered, "I didn't know where else to go." Matsi didn't respond right away. He simply stepped aside and nodded toward the living room. "You don't need to ask," he said quietly. Zuba walked in slowly, her eyes moving across the house she had once called hers. Everything looked different, brighter, fuller, alive. The walls she once painted dull now carried the drawings of children. The air that once felt heavy with arguments now carried laughter and hope. She sat on the same old couch she once told Matsi to leave behind when she locked him out. Her fingers traced the fabric as her voice broke. "You turned the house into a home again," she whispered. "I almost lost my son because of pride." Matsi stood near the